Hello again. For those of you just joining us, I'm Jason Ponton, the editor-in-chief and the publisher of MIT's Technology Review, and I'm speaking to you from the Beat Retreat on Vieques, sponsored by Daily Motion. I'm going to bring up some panelists to join me, and we're going to talk a little bit about the future of media, particularly as it pertains to video. But before I did so, I thought it might be helpful if I presented a little bit of data about the state of media, what we know about the extraordinary inflections and discomfiture that our industry has been experiencing, really since 1994. So some data, and for those of you who are watching live, or those of you here in the audience, if you want to see these slides, I'm happy to go and send them to you as well. You can write to me at jponton@mit.edu. So the first point to note is that these inflections we are going through are by no means changing. The patterns of media consumption continue to change. This year was an important moment, though, in that for the first time digital news surpassed newspapers and radios as a mechanism of consuming news. As long ago as 1991, 68% of people got most of their news from television, and around half of people got news from newspapers and from radio. Last year, the amount of news watched on TV finally dropped below 55%, and newspapers were at 33% and radio at 29%. But mobile news had risen to 39% and digital news to 50%. So a fundamental shift in the way that we consume news. But the really striking thing is that a lot of people aren't watching news at all. Many young people in particular are simply turned off. Adults ages 18 to 29% said that only 34% of them had watched any news that week, down from 50% in 2006. The biggest shift in media consumption over the last couple of years, however, has been the subject of this event, online video viewing. So the growth in total numbers of online video viewers has been relatively slow, but there's been a huge growth in the amount of viewing on mobile platforms. And this is based upon the growth of smartphones. Just last year, the amount of video watched on mobile devices increased by 22% in 1 year, which is a significant increase. This is based on the saturation of mobile devices in this country. We're up to 95.6% in the United States, of which half are truly smartphones. That's about as much as it can get. Well, if you go to Israel, you'll see that they're at 200% because people carry around two phones. But Israel, if you've ever driven around Tel Aviv, you'll see people driving with two phones in one hand. Probably won't get to that, but for the United States, 95% is pretty extraordinary. The other big change in viewing habits has been the growth of tablets and e-readers. It did grow from a very small base, but by 2013, 31% of all Americans will have a tablet of some sort. In comparison, e-readers have been growing slightly slower. They're at around 11.7% of saturation. I want to talk a little bit about editorial directions that we've been perceiving. So the first thing to say is that at some level, we don't need any more content. In terms of engaging readers, in terms of being able to sell advertising against the content we have, we aren't fulfilling the inventory that we do have. The competition for readers is simply increasing across multiple platforms, and the competition for paying customers is becoming even more intense. What has happened over the last 18 months, 2 years, is the strategy that is sometimes called digital first is becoming the predominant one. Digital first is a way of thinking about your editorial. It doesn't mean that you are necessarily only a digital company, but it means that even if you have a print property as Technology Review has, or as the New York Times, or as The Economist has. Digital leads the editorial strategy, so that stories are published first on editorial, and if there has to be a devolution of design or of prioritizing readers, the prioritizing occurs around digital readers in preference to print readers. The big shift that occurred within advertising over the last 2 years, in my opinion, is the growth of what is sometimes called native advertising. We used to call it sponsored advertising. This is where you allow the brands to promote their messaging directly within the endemic experience of the site. It's advertising that actually provides useful or intelligent editorial around a brand's messaging. If I can use an example from my own publication, we did a study of our readership, and we found that the second most remembered content we had provided on our sites and inside our magazine wasn't the cover story in the print magazine or the leading news stories, it was our endemic advertising, our sponsored advertising. Editors hate to hear this, but the truth is that readers will respond to any content as long as it's good content. This only works, however, if the advertising, the sponsored native advertising, is true to the brand's identity. The Atlantic recently got in tremendous trouble by placing on their site some advertising from the Church of Scientology. It wasn't appropriately flagged as native advertising, and it was deeply at odds with the culture of the Atlantic. If you're going to do native advertising, the native advertising has to really be of interest and has to be consistent with the editorial message of the rest of the brand. When it's done right, native advertising can be the holy grail of good advertising. Let's talk a bit about paywalls, which, having been rejected for the last decade, have been receiving a new breath of life, partly because of the collapse of display advertising on sites. So there are a variety of ways you can approach paywalls. There can be a full stop. My wife's company, the Boston Globe, has put all its content from the Boston Globe behind a paywall while creating a subsidiary free site on boston.com. You can have a freemium approach where some content is free and some is behind a paywall. This is the approach that the Wall Street Journal has been pursuing. You can have, I guess, what could be called a taxometer. This is where the first few articles are free and then a paywall kicks in. It's an absolute number of stories. There are time limits based upon a day, a week, a month, or a year pass. This is what The Guardian uses. There are bulk sales, where you upsell and you sell to companies. This is popular with Media Watch. And then finally there are paywalls based upon sale by the piece. This is what Peepcode has been doing. I think that paywalls are probably not going to work long term. The most successful paywall is probably the New York Times, but the New York Times' metrics around that paywall have been extremely ambiguous at best. We did a year-long study where we compared the performance of our site with a paywall and without a paywall. And we found that the amount of advertising dollars we lost by putting the paywall up were no means outmatched by the amount of revenues we got from subscriptions. But the surprising fact was we actually earned more money from a membership model when we took the paywall down. And I'd like to talk a little bit about what a membership model is. A membership model replaces customers with members, with sponsors, with advocates. Products, like a magazine or access to the site, become membership benefits. You replace a community of partners you replace subscribers and people paying for the site with a community of partners working towards a common good. And the membership benefits increase incrementally with the level of commitment. It allows for scalability and it allows for incentives. it is a much better PR angle, and it has a much better overall consumer value as well. Who's doing this at the moment? Well, we are, NPR does. The Daily Dish, founded by Andrew Sullivan, just announced a membership model. I think many things that we now currently think of as being essentially paywall sites, like the New York Times, like The Economist, will begin to move to a more community-based membership form. So what's driving this interest now in alternative ways of deriving revenue from consumers? It's the collapse of display advertising as a mechanism on sites like my own of garnering interest. So here's some interesting figures. These come from Edelman. So online advertising is almost universally perceived as annoying, distracting, and all over the place. Consumers say that online banner ads don't work, 54%. 68% say they're distracting. 51% say they're annoying. All over the place is 46%. 40% say they're invasive. 16% say they're creepy. Only 7% of consumers find display advertising persuasive. 10% find it clever. The rate of click-throughs on display advertising is getting so low on consumer sites, often below 1%, that I am fairly convinced that the click-throughs that do exist are accidental. It's even worse on mobile platforms. We all know that mobile is the future of computing and of media, but we have no idea what the media format for advertising should be on mobile platforms. 46% of consumers say they've researched a product on a mobile platform. 32% say they've purchased a product. 30% say they've looked for a product in a retail store. Only 2% of mobile consumers say they've clicked through on an ad in the last 12 months. We really don't know what the ad format will be for mobile devices. But there is a huge opportunity in this space. In fact, if you think about time on site versus ad spend, the time on site on mobile devices is around 23% of most consumers' time, but the ad spend on mobile devices is only at 1%. So we could fill that gap, about a $20 billion opportunity, according to Mary Meeker at Kleiner Perkins. We could have an entirely new ad format. But we're looking at the people in the room, the people watching live now, to try and imagine what mobile advertising will look like. We've been talking a lot about programmatic buying, about ad networks. I am not a huge fan of ad networks. I think they tend to push down costs per thousands on sites. The only ad network we participate in is the Economist ad network, where there's AO advertising, Yahoo, Google display ads. All these ad networks tend to go and move the infinite inventory on these sites to a fairly small demand. And on consumer sites like the Huffington Post, we've seen them begin to derive less than $1 per reader per year based upon display advertising. The future of digital advertising, as it does exist, I think is in a couple of areas. Not in display advertising, not in static ads, but in video and in rich media. So, to sum it up, as we see 2013 and the future of media, the huge opportunities are in video advertising, are in a digital-first approach that emphasizes mobile and tablets and a membership model. It's in social media, it's around native advertising, and it's around a declining dependence on ad networks.